And give me 1 second to ensure that we are all set up. We will go ahead and get started. Okay, so welcome everyone. Looking around the room, and it looks like we have a fair amount of folks here tonight. However, I'm not sure if we have quorum. Ryan, Stephanie, I'm looking around and I'm not seeing a whole bunch of CSC members just quite yet. So wondering if we should just wait maybe a minute or so?
Yeah, I think so. We definitely see Isabel and Estela. But yeah.
Welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Estela. Hi, Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
I see David as well, and Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
See a lot of folks are joining.
And Dr. Ramos, I'm not sure if it's you or Liz, but could we give Anna permission to record locally? She's named Spanish recording.
We're on board.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos.
Hola, buenas tardes, Estela. Welcome, everyone. So I see we have several folks who have joined, and it is 2 minutes after 5:30, so we are ready to get started. Welcome to your South Fresno Community Steering Committee. And tonight we're hosting the 53rd CSC meeting. As you already know, we're going to go through some general logistics, provide a little bit of framing for tonight's meeting, and then officially launch into today's agenda. So what you see here on your screen right now is some of those logistics that we have. So as you know, we are able to host our meetings through Zoom, and in your Zoom controls, you should have the ability to select interpretation. So in order to increase accessibility for all of our residents and all of our CSC members who live within the South Fresno AB 617 boundary, we want to make sure that we have translation or simultaneous translation for Spanish. So you can click on the language that you would like to hear by choosing English or Spanish, and you can ensure that you mute the original audio is not selected so that you can hear attendees who join via phone, or if you would like to not hear that, you can also make sure that you don't select that. And then you will do that by selecting the 3 little dots that are located at the bottom of your screen. I will make a note that Zoom just received an upgrade. So the arrangement of your Zoom might look slightly different than it's looked before. So this is the first time that Zoom has really changed its interface a little bit. So there might be slight variation. So those of you who are used to the usual selection of your language channel, make sure that you click on language interpretation from the menu and select the language that you would like to hear and choose either English or Spanish. I am going to pass it to our colleagues at Linguistica to provide the same instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. El día de hoy tenemos interpretación en español disponible para ustedes. Si están conectándose desde una computadora, en la parte inferior de su pantalla van a ver la opción del mundo, o para los que se han actualizado a la última versión, la opción que dice interpretación de idiomas. Seleccionan español y silenciar audio original. Si se están conectando desde un dispositivo móvil o de una tableta, pueden tocar su pantalla, seleccionar los 3 puntos, interpretación de idiomas, seleccionan español, silenciar audio original y para finalizar su opción, por favor, seleccionar finalizado, terminado o listo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. So as usual, we would encourage you to please update your screen name so that we can identify you. And when we call on you, that we can ensure that we're calling you by your full name. To do so, you change your screen name, you just click on the top right-hand side of your picture or video. We ask that our community steering committee members should use the following naming convention, where you have your first name, last name, followed by the CSC. If you're a resident, you can use an R and use your first name and last name. If you do not know how to do this, our team will be coming around virtually and ensuring that you do have the correct naming convention. So all other participants, if we welcome you to please update
Disculpen,
your... Sí.
pero estoy escuchando la interpretación y la persona que está hablando, las dos voces.
Ah, ok, tiene que silenciar el audio en inglés. Y Estela parece que está conectada 2 veces. O en una tableta y por teléfono también. Tanya or Diana,
No,
I'm not sure.
por teléfono no.
Okay. ¿Puede escuchar a Tania o a Diana? Señora Estela. Okay, it seems like we might be having an interpretation disturbance in the Spanish channel. We're good. Okay, so we're ready to move on. I see a thumbs up from Stephanie. I think there's might be a very slight delay on my end. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Thank you, Estela, for the confirmation. As we were saying, so if we could make sure that folks have the correct name identification so that when we call on you, we can call you by your first name and acknowledge in our notes and especially in our action items who is reporting what as folks contribute to today's conversation. As you know, we have set an established set of norms for how we engage together in this virtual space. So we have our agreed virtual meeting etiquette. So we want to make sure that you stay on mute unless you're speaking or plan to speak. You will notice that our team may virtually travel through space and mute you if for some reason you're unmuted and there's some static noise. We do ask, especially today, we have a very packed agenda. If you could please raise your Zoom hand to indicate if you have a question. Of course, you don't need to hold back if you have a question and you don't want to lose your train of thought. We also encourage you to put your question in the chat. Residents that are part of the stipend program should plan to stay on the meeting for at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for a stipend. That means roughly about 90 minutes or so. And then, of course, as part of this virtual meeting etiquette, we all as a attendee of this meeting have agreed on a set of principles to guide our conversation. That is, we've agreed to have a productive discussion, and we define that as how we defined it. And we have agreed to have a respectful dialogue. And so these goals are what help us achieve today's meeting goals. And we want to make sure that everyone is able to participate and that we have folks that step up for the conversation. And sometimes that might mean stepping back because we want to give others space to contribute to the conversation. We want to stay on point and on time. That means sometimes allowing our comments to be slightly brief so that we can continue the dialogue, attack the problem, not the person, respectfully challenge ideas or outcomes, never attack the person, honor every person's humanity and dignity. And we want to seek common ground. That is, we want to achieve the ability to build some consensus and find shared values that are going to help us all achieve the best results possible. So these are our standing virtual etiquette agreements that we all have made. And so for today's meeting, you see that we have, as part of our welcoming right now, we're slightly rushing to get through given some technical difficulties, per usual, right? And we're going to launch right into reviewing the action item tracker. Then we'll have a presentation from CARB to talk about a heavy duty truck enforcement follow-up conversation. And we'll have an update at 6:15 on the SERP incentive measures prioritization discussion. Notice the word discussion there, so we do expect to have a rich dialogue. So really are counting on folks to share their comments, concern, and ensure that we have an open conversation. If we have enough time, we are going to go to our updates around 7:10. If we run out of time, I will ask the CSC members if you would like to receive updates via email so that we can preserve some time for the two big presentations that we have for today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and go ahead and move us to some opening remarks from Ryan from the Air District.
Thanks, Dr. Ramos. Happy to be here tonight with all of you. And, like you covered, we have a really packed agenda and a lot of good topics of discussion. Really want to thank those that were able to attend the agenda setting meeting and give us some really good input on some things to consider when putting together the presentations and sharing information. So I think there's like you said, looking for a really good conversation with all of you, and more importantly, getting feedback on how some of these things can be moved along as soon as we get approval to do so. So yeah, I'll turn it back over to you at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. And one thing to note for today's conversation or today's meeting is that today, unlike previous meetings, we do not have a volunteered co-host. We want to remind folks that any one of the CSC members can volunteer to be a community co-host. So you'll hear, unfortunately, a lot of me talking today. I will be facilitating today's conversation, and I am welcomed by my team, Liz Lev and Bekela, who is also joining us today. As you know, we are here to support today's conversation. So if you have any technical difficulties or follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us directly on the chat. So with that said, I want to remind you that what we started doing for the last few meetings is allowing for anyone who's in the meeting to ask questions about any agenda item that we cover. So instead of having to reserve the public's time at the end for the public comment, we want to have a rich dialogue as the agenda items are discussed. So we will start with calling on CSC members, and then others can contribute to the conversation. And we're hoping that it becomes a free-flowing conversation as tonight's meeting evolves. So with that said, we're going to start with our action item tracker. As you already know, the tracker is part of the process that we have implemented to increase transparency and accountability. So this is why we dedicate so much time to reviewing those action items so that you can ensure that what you all have recommended has received the attention that it deserves, and there is a follow-up to each of the items. So we're going to pass it over to the Air District. I think Stephanie's going to walk us through some of the action items with the support of Ryan. Stephanie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramos, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but like Amy mentioned, this is just a routine check-in on some of the action items that we've had from our most recent meeting. And again, this is broken up into our items that are still in progress and that their district and various agencies are working on, and the ones that we've completed. For this, the first few items, they're all related to a conversation we had from our last meeting about CSC membership. And so the first item is that CSC members are encouraged to reach out to community members to encourage more resident participation. And so we welcome everyone to invite any CSC residents to join the CSC. And the Air District will work with what we're calling the recruitment subcommittee, which I'll discuss in the next item to discuss the recruitment process. The next item was to create a space for the CSC to brainstorm on most effective outreach, recruitment, and onboarding strategies. And so to follow up on this, we have scheduled a recruitment subcommittee meeting for Tuesday, February 21st from 4:30 to 5:30. We'll be sending that information shortly to you all to discuss outreach and onboarding strategies. And related to this as well, this next item is to develop outreach and recruitment materials for distribution, again, related to CSC membership. And so again, we have developed a draft recruitment flyer that we want your feedback on, but we'll definitely discuss this in this recruitment subcommittee that we're having. Finally, the last pending item is to relaunch the land use subcommittee meeting, and the Air District is working with the City of Fresno to schedule out that next subcommittee. And I'll go ahead and move down to our completed items. The first item, this is more of an ongoing item and just a commitment that as the urban greening and vegetative barriers contracts move through, that we'll continue to work with the trees subcommittee so that the CSC is able to provide additional recommendations. Next, the Air District, with the support of the CSC members, will develop a process to potentially expand the boundary. And in response to this, the Air District has expanded opportunities for public members to participate throughout CSC meetings. And will, of course, like I've mentioned previously, work with the CSC on recruitment and onboarding. And finally, this last item was related to, at our last meeting, reaching out to Laura, who's one of our public members, and our staff did reach out to Laura to discuss opportunities to both engage and to ask questions about air monitoring in Fresno. And with that, before we take questions, I think I'll go ahead and pass it over to Ryan just to follow up on a few of these items. And then after that, we'll go ahead and take questions about any of these.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Just wanted to kind of go into a little bit more detail on the one in regards to looking at expanding boundaries. You know, kind of going back to when we started the process, we had an experience where we expanded the boundary of the AB 617, listening to the Community Steering Committee, and it was really driven by and based on need and you know, need for those resources to reach and benefit additional people that would you know, benefit from emission reductions in the area. And so working together, we did expand that. And so the process that we went through this time, you know, in considering that, we looked at the census tracts that were discussed. Unlike the census tracts that were expanded to, we found that the census tracts scored much lower on CalEnviroscreen than many of the other ones. In addition to the pollution score itself, which for those census tracts was in the 50, was 50, you know, in comparison to the majority of the census tracts in the AB 617 area was currently, which are in the 95 plus. And so at this point, we wouldn't look to expand the boundary. You know, some of the other things, just kind of hearkening back and going back to our discussion that we had in the last meeting, it seems like there were still some concerns about the process, the renewal process, which was a consistent and equitable process that we did across all three regions. We handled it exactly the same way for all of them. In you know, where there were questions, we had follow-up conversations with people, and during those discussions, we asked follow-up questions, and you know, based on the responses that we got, we determined who is eligible and who qualifies to participate, which is one of the roles that the district has, according to both ARB's the blueprint that we all follow across the state for implementing the AB 617 program. And so, if there are any additional questions about anything that I've shared tonight, what I would ask would be for individuals to contact us, and we're more than happy to provide any additional information that anybody may need.
Great, thank you so much for those updates. And I did see a hand up from Señora Estela and then Lisa. Estela, did you have a question? Okay, and Ivanka, and then we'll get to you, Lisa.
This was just on the tracker. I didn't see any response, or maybe we didn't go down far enough about I had mentioned in the last meeting the truck study and the advisory committee deadlines. Was that addressed? Or I didn't see it, and I don't have it pulled up individually on my computer.
I'm remembering that, Ivanka. Let's see, Stephanie's gonna pull up the tracker again. I can't remember if it became an action item.
I do believe that came out of the agenda setting meeting, and these were items that were from the last CSC meeting. So I don't believe it's not captured in the action items.
Okay, thank you.
So when we talk today, Ivanka, maybe I can plant the seed for if you want to bring back that conversation when we go over the truck study with CARD, maybe that can then translate into an action item, if you see that fits.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, go ahead, Lisa.
Well, first off, I want to let everybody know after last month's meeting, once again, nobody, not a single staff person from the Air District contacted me to resolve our issue. I still believe I have open complaints with the Air District regarding at least 4 staff members regarding the situation that occurred. My big question to you, Ryan, since you're all knowing, is if what I turned in year 1 and year 2 was good enough and the questions never changed, then why did I get tossed off in year 3? That's the first question. And I just, want to let everybody know that I was threatened with being tossed off this committee more than a year ago by someone who's actually in this meeting, and I'm not going to name them. I'm going to let my attorney deal with that. And also too, I was told by, I believe it was Heather, that basically there was a committee. Can you provide me those names publicly now out of the sake of transparency of who was on that committee and who made that decision to throw me off this steering committee?
Thanks, Lisa, for your questions. So I'm noting 3 questions here. One about application status not changing, and wanting to have an explanation for that. Maybe we can start there, Ryan, and let me know if you want a repeat of any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, as I discussed earlier, this is not, no one was kicked off the steering committee. We have eligibility criteria that everybody that wants to participate as a CSC member has to meet. And based on conversations that we had, we informed people that they were no longer eligible. That is not kicking someone off.
Excuse me, there were very leading questions, Ryan.
No, Lisa, they were not.
Yeah,
they were the same questions. They were the exact questions that were on the same survey that everybody else filled out.
And I told
and the process
Heather,
that we followed for that was the same, because we had many members that had difficulty filling it out online, and we contacted them, or they contacted us, and we walked them through the exact same process that we did with you.
Excuse me, I actually called you guys and told you because of my double cataracts. And, you know, I just like, what are the questions? And when she said they were the exact same questions, because I asked, what were the questions? Has anything changed? You guys said no. Heather said no. And I said, everything's the same. Leave it as that. And then the questions started. Pure and
So,
simple.
Lisa, I'm wondering if this requires like a specific action item to follow up with you directly.
Well, I
It
thought there
sounds
was
like
an
it's a-
action item last month, and obviously there's not. And now, Ryan,
Well-
could you please tell me who made up the committee? Because she said she had to go to some committee or somebody to talk to them, and they made the decision. Who was it?
No, that was not the conversation. I'm sorry, that was the takeaway, but that wasn't the conversation. There was no going back to anybody.
Really? Because she went to somebody and then called me back and told me I was off the committee. So who did she go and talk to then, if I'm wrong?
I think Dr. Ramos has a point. If you want to discuss this, we're more than happy to. In regards to the second matter where you said no one's responded to you or called you from the district, I know that's not true as well. I know our legal counsel has reached out to you and has talked with you.
They've talked to me and they took some information and they have yet to get back to me. And they told me basically in 10 days, it's been longer than 30.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I could
Lisa-
definitely follow up on that tomorrow.
Yeah, Ryan and Lisa, and I'm seeing Ivanka's question and Genevieve's question in the chat. And so Ivanka, I want to start with hers. Instead of allowing for or having a discussion about this process, the discussion ended up evolving into talking about expanding the boundaries. And that's what got incorporated as an action item. So I'm wondering, Lisa and Ryan, since this seems like to be a very specific conversation, if you all would like to have that be an action item and you all can meet and report back to the CSC, only thinking about all the other things that the CSC would like to hear today.
Yeah.
How does that sound for CSC members and others?
No, I actually would like witnesses in it being transparent, because obviously the conversations I've had with the district staff people are not being clear and transparently presented here.
Mm. Ivanka, would you like to clarify? I'm not, I don't know if you want to add context.
I just feel like Ryan's trying to make a decision to end this and give us an explanation of why Lisa shouldn't be part of this membership. And we as the CSC are supposed to sit here and not be involved in that process. And it doesn't seem right. When I've reviewed the charter rules and looked at the situation, if Lisa is giving the same exact information, and I've had this conversation with Ryan because he wanted to individually explain to me what was happening. But my point is, if her information has not changed, boundaries haven't changed, then why is she not continually being a member of this CSC? If her information is given the same from year one as it is to now, then that should be where we sit and she should still be a member. I don't think we have it written into a charter to say that we have the right to vote on this or not, but I am curious to see what the census is of the actual members versus Ryan of how you feel about Lisa remaining on this committee. Lisa has been very instrumental in bringing about the tracker, things that the Air District may want to claim the fame for. A lot of that has come from Lisa's years of experience in planning. So I feel like she's a valuable part of this CSC. Our membership is already dwindled. This is somebody that has been a part from the beginning, and it's ridiculous that we're even having this discussion right now when we have so many CERT measures that we still need to continue to implement and move forward. Just really frustrated right now that this is where we're at.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I share the frustration with having this conversation as well. You know, we established eligibility criteria. You know, in going through those eligibility criteria, everybody knows what they are. You know, being a resident of the community, being a part of a business in the community, working in a community, being a part of a community-based organization, being a member of an environmental justice advocacy group that works with people in the community. Those were the criteria. And so the criteria that we went through, and we found that that wasn't true for some of the members, and so they didn't qualify. They're not eligible to be part of the committee. We gave people opportunity to provide further clarification on how they are eligible, to which we didn't receive any response. And Ivanka, to your point about why the Air District, that's one of the things in that we are given the responsibility of convening AB 617 community steering committees. And one of the roles and responsibilities that we have is establishing the eligibility criteria in working with you and through the charter, but then making sure that the information in those applications are accurate.
So once again, I ask, if nothing in my life has changed in year 3, why did I get thrown off? Why did I not get renewed or removed, or whatever nice language you want to use?
We asked you to provide clarification on your business, Lisa, and unfortunately we didn't get it. If you want to provide that information to us for consideration, please do, and we've afforded that opportunity both verbally and in writing to you, asking for that to help with the situation, so we wouldn't have to have this conversation through the meeting.
I gave you the information. Nothing has changed.
Hi, this is Sandra. Can I please propose an action item for the next agenda? I don't know if I need to have a second, but I do think this is the second meeting that I've attended this recently, and we are having the same conversation again. And I think this is relevant because I did go back and I checked. I know at the last meeting, there was conversation about recruiting additional members, and I actually had a couple of conversations with former members as to why they either stopped showing up or they're not engaged. And part of what I did hear is that they felt that many instances, the conversations and the topics were very circular, and that there was a lot of just that they felt from their perspective that we didn't move on to the things that they wanted to discuss. So I do think it's important. I don't know necessarily if we need to go through the details in the next meeting, but I think it would be important to review the charter. And if it's appropriate, then the committee can then take action to either amend eligibility guidelines, right? But I also think it would be important from the staff's perspective to share, because I'm not familiar, right, Lisa and staff, with what exactly transpired. So I think it'd be helpful, at least for me and maybe other members, to get a clear, right, report from staff as to what happened, right? What changed? Is the district now, admitting that Lisa served for 2 years when she in fact was not actually eligible, right? Because what I'm hearing from Lisa is that nothing actually changed in the 3rd year. So I think it would be great to get to a place where we agree on, how the decision was made and under what guidelines. And then I think that, guidelines are not written in stone, and we can certainly consider, right, whether the charter warrants any amendments. But I think it's important for us to have this as an action item so that we're not going in circles.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for introducing that. And I'm seeing agreement from Genevieve in the chat. So our team will make a note of that. So Liz, if you can make sure that becomes an action item. And love to hear from other CSC members if we feel comfortable moving forward to the next agenda item, knowing that this will then become an action item. All right. With that said, I'm not hearing any opposition from CSC members. So we will go ahead and move forward. Thank you so much, Sandra, for helping us continue the dialogue for tonight. As you mentioned, and I mentioned at the top of the hour, we do have a very packed agenda. So it's my pleasure to move us to our next agenda item, which is CARB's heavy duty truck enforcement follow-up. So today we have the opportunity to listen to this presentation. Thanks to the community for contributing to sharing your concerns, and especially around traffic and pollution. And as a response to your concern, CARB was able to set up a heavy duty traffic enforcement stop. And today Eric is here to present on the findings from that stop. So as you're hearing the presentation, please do feel free to think about any questions, concerns, follow-up recommendations for CARB. Please do put those in the chat or be ready to continue to contribute to the conversation. Again, our team will be monitoring who raises their hand so that we can call on CSC members first. So Eric, I see you've come on camera, so go ahead. You should have the privileges of sharing your screen.
All right, thank you. Let me see what I got here.
And as Eric is getting ready to set up, you can see the presentation is also linked in the chat. So Steph was able to provide us the hyperlink to the actual presentation if you'd like to download it. And in addition to that, there's some guidance that Ryan referred to on page 22 of CARB's blueprint that's hyperlinked there in the chat for you to review after today's meeting. You ready, Eric?
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Eric Bissinger, and I work with the Community Outreach and Enforcement section at CARB. In November, we had 2 days of enforcement action in Fresno, and this presentation is going to cover that. This action stems from our commitment to enhance and increase enforcement activities outlined in their CERT. This is also in response to recent concerns that CSC members have had that they voiced about increased truck traffic along Jensen. So this is presentation overview. This slide is an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. I want to begin with describing what we did and what tools we used and how these tools work. This includes a description of the portable emission acquisition system, or what we call PEAKS. I'm also going to describe how we inspect a diesel truck, what we're looking for, and how it leads to a citation. Then I'll share the results and discuss some future enforcement action within the South Central Fresno border boundary. Okay, so what is PEAKS? PEAKS stands for the Portable Emission Acquisition System. And what it does is it measures the exhaust as vehicles pass underneath it. So looking at the picture on the slide, can you see that long white PVC piping that stretches out into the road and above the road? That piece is attached to a vacuuming system that sucks in the emissions of the vehicles as a vehicle goes underneath it. So we work with the CHP to identify a safe location where we can cone off an area to direct trucks out of traffic so that the truck can pass underneath that peak system. And the PVC piping is above the vehicle's exhaust area, and the vacuum system will bring the emissions to an emission reader and a computer. As the trucks pass under the system, the computer displays a line graph where CARB enforcement can monitor the results from inside the van. If inspectors see an unusual spike in the data caused by a passing vehicle, they will notify the CHP officers to pull that truck over for further inspections. We also have the CHP pull over other trucks that appear suspicious, or if they look older, or if they're pulling a refrigerated trailer, or if we want to randomly check for tampering, or if we want to examine the onboard diagnostic systems, the OBD. There are several reasons why we can pull over a truck. So inspections. So every vehicle that gets pulled over is inspected for all regulations that accompany a diesel engine. Our inspectors ask the driver to open the hood and the investigation begins. The Heavy Duty Vehicle Inspection Program, or HDVIP, includes checking the onboard diagnostic lights and if needed, a smoke opacity snap test. The statewide truck and bus inspection includes inspecting the emission control label to confirm the engine model year, which should be a model year of 2010 or newer. The truck and bus inspection also includes checking the fleet report in CARB's Truckers database. And if the truck is pulling a refrigerated trailer, our inspectors will check that engine also and the reporting status of that TRU, Transport Refrigeration Unit. Also during the Fresno event, we had our inspectors provide the driver with information on the new requirements for the Heavy Duty Inspection and Maintenance Program, or HDINM. The HDINM program starts this year. We are calling this program a smog check for trucks because it's very similar to the gas vehicle smog check program that we all have been doing on our vehicles for many years now. So the truck owners are required to take their truck into a certified inspector to verify the emissions, to verify that the emissions meet the 2010 engine standards, and also to make sure that emission systems are running properly. The owner then must report the results to DMV, and if the owner fails to do so, there will be a hold placed on the registration at DMV for that truck. So here are the results. This slide displays the results of our enforcement actions for the 2 days we were in Fresno, which I will summarize now. We deployed peaks and roadside inspections on both days. Day one, we were at Dorothy and Elm Street, which is very close to the Jensen location that CSC members have voiced a concern about. The second day, we were at Central and Willow, which was suggested by the CHP officers. The first day, we screened approximately 285 trucks, and on day two, we screened about 265 trucks. And when I say screened, I mean they went underneath the peaks system. There were 5 trucks that had spikes in the peaks data, indicating that they were high emitters. All 5 trucks were flagged by CHP and inspected by CARB enforcement. In total, we did 75 truck inspections and 5 inspections of transport refrigeration units, or TRUs. The results were 3 violations from non-readable or missing emission control labels. 1 TRU received an emission-related citation, and 8 trucks had lights displaying emission malfunctions from their onboard diagnostic system, and they received citations also. Citations require the owner to fix the emission errors and pay a penalty. If the owner fails to follow through with these requirements, a registration hold is placed on that vehicle also. But unfortunately, we can't place a registration hold on trailers for the TRU violations. We also did a press release that invited local news stations to cover the event. The media event was covered by NBC, CBS, plus 2 Spanish-speaking outlets, Univision and Telemundo. So, future enforcement. We're planning to deploy peaks again in February, later this month, and we're currently working with CHP to secure a location. We are also planning another deployment in the fall, so we are asking you to help us identify some locations where there is a concern of high amounts of heavy-duty truck traffic. Can you help us identify some locations? We can talk about those locations now, or you can always email me with any of your ideas and concerns. So that concludes my presentation, and we are here to answer questions.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks to the entire CARB team that's here today to help facilitate answering some questions. So as predicted, we have a great number of questions, so we'll start with Kimberly. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. I have a couple of questions. Where were the inspections done at? One, were they just trucks that belong to big businesses, or were there owner operators, or did you guys go to a weight station? Like, where was these inspections done at?
Yeah, these are roadside. So we're at the corner of Dorothy and Avenue and Elm Street, right on the side of the road. So as the trucks are going through traffic, we pull them right out of traffic, and they go underneath the peak system. directed by CHP that kind of wave them in right off the road. So, like you could see day one, there's 285 trucks going by. So there's a lot of truck traffic.
So how do you get past? Because a lot of these trucks have, like, I believe what is called a bypass. So how do you get by that? They still have to come in as CHP is flagging them in, because when they have a bypass, they could just go straight through. They don't have to abide.
I don't believe that a bypass is works with the peak system. I think that's just for way stations, right? Or is that because
Okay, I'm just
yeah.
trying to understand. So these
Yeah.
trucks were just going down the highway and you guys flagged them in. So did any of them belong to like Flyers or any of those businesses that have a fleet of trucks, or were these just all owner operators?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely fleet trucks. There's individually owned trucks, just any truck that happened to be going down that road that day.
So what did you see majority of the 2 days that you did? Was it more owner operators, or were they more of businesses that were just coming through doing their drop ups or pickups of trailers or things like that?
Hey,
Yeah,
Eric, I can weigh in. Hi, my name is Cody Howard. I work in the in the enforcement division as well. I was out here on this event. It was a mix of vehicles and owner operators versus fleets. We do not particularly choose based on whether or not it's an owner operator or a fleet vehicle. We only choose based on whether or not it got screened as a high emitter, or random pullovers. We'll just say CHP pull over the next truck that comes by.
Okay, and the reason why I was asking this question is because for owner operators, especially with the events fleet rule coming, for owner operators, it's kind of hard for them to be able to convert over, but they are scheduled to go in and do a yearly inspection to make sure that everything is up to par. So as a former owner operator of a heavy duty vehicle, I'm asking these questions just to make sure that it wasn't just owner operators, it was a mixture, because we do have a mixture of truck traffic that comes through. It's not just owner operators. There are big businesses. We have Flyers who delivers ethanol all throughout the state of California. So that's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, and that is a good question. And but it was a complete mix from owner operators to large fleets.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. And I'm seeing Natalie is next.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to pitch an area that could use like a study like this. I was thinking on Cherry and Central Avenue. Some of the folks that live in that area have talked about a lot of the trucks that come through the community, not just because of like the exhaust that comes with the trucks, but also because of the degradation of roads. And also there is a school located on Cherry Avenue. So I think that would be like a good place to put this. And then also, I was also thinking the Jensen bypass, because even though that in Kawa, even though trucks aren't supposed to be going through local streets, they are still going through local streets to meet their deadlines.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely took note of that.
Great. And I don't know if Ed or Ivanka were next. My apologies. I didn't see which one went first.
Let Ivanka go. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ed. My question was more of a suggestion for next round, or if this has already been thought of. When we're doing an inspection by CARB, can we also have our air district's mobile van for collection? Because you're collecting specific to peak data that is coming through from the vehicles that are going under the system, the peak system. However, what is that in comparing data to the overburdened area specific to these areas that residents are telling you are high hot spots for too many trucks? And then on a bigger picture, like, I don't want this just to be reported information one time and done. How are we about to use this, knowing we have that truck study that's happening? This information needs to be a part of not just this one result, but as you continue to do these results and these that has to be a part of this local truck study, not just data to say it was an enforcement piece that was done. So, thank you.
Okay. So I had just a clarification. You're suggesting we bring the monitoring van out?
I'm curious, yeah, like what is the overall data collection in that region that you are doing the actual data inspection, right? So it's 9 to 2. Like, if that's the deployment for a whole day, I don't know what day of the week is that. Is that an actual day where we have high turnover trucks coming through these main spots? And comparing that to the data that we are collecting for all the sources of pollution in the bigger van that can collect data for that area. Like, I think it will be more telling if you're collecting data from 2 different sources for the same region or that same location.
Okay. Yeah, we can work with the district and talk about doing that.
Sounds like a good action item. We can make a note of that. Go ahead, Edward. Ed.
Thank you. Eric, I'm very pleased to see the results of this round of testing. Out of 550 screenings, it looks like we had 17 issues, and that was one of my questions. The 5 trucks that were identified as high emitters, were they issued citations? So are they part of that 12 citation process?
I don't know specifically if all 5 of those were cited. Cody, are you aware? But if they were, they would be of that 8. Yeah, the 8 from that HDVIP program.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Those 5 vehicles were shown to have, I think, mill on, which means there's something wrong with their
emissions.
The emissions equipment that controls what comes out of the pipe. So they were issued, and I agree with you, Ed. It's really great because, there are 500 trucks that are operating, and define those, 5 that are high emitters that are causing the biggest problem. It can be hard. So this screening tool allows us to focus in on those vehicles that we may have missed in the past because we didn't have something measuring emissions of trucks driving down the road. So it allows us to really hone in on our enforcement efforts on the vehicles that are having the highest emissions.
Yeah, against 550 trucks, it looks like 0.2% were problematic. And what I find interesting is I'm part of Stockton, and Stockton did the same thing with a fewer number of trucks, and they saw higher, if I remember right, higher emissions issues. And even if you go against or go to the original pilot program that was done in San Bernardino, this is far below what the results of those were. So I'm very happy to see what you're finding out. It looks to me like, for the most part, trucks are doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah, in this specific instance, there was a lot of clean trucks driving down the road, which is really good news. And we were able to identify those ones that were of issue and hopefully bring them into compliance.
Thank you for what you do. I think that's all good stuff.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Sandra, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I was definitely echo the previous comments. I wanted to ask about, I think related to the demographic question, I think it would be really helpful to know a little bit more about the folks that you guys were engaging with, right? Not just if they're owner operators or if they're part of a fleet, but also like thinking about the demographics of the individuals that are driving the trucks. And I'm thinking about that because I think in the future that could be helpful. For example, if we're looking to do some targeted education or targeted incentives, I think it'd be helpful to, as you're collecting this information, to also think about demographics, right? For proactive and prevention measures. And then I was going to also ask for, definitely echo the previous person who spoke about Kawa, there is a ton of heavy trucks that drive through the neighborhood on a daily basis. So I would absolutely encourage folks to go through, Jensen Bypass, Jensen and Cedar, the actual small Jensen Street, and 10th, because there's a whole bunch of truck traffic that goes through there. Florence and Cedar, there's a lot of trucks that idle there. And then Orange and Church would be another area where I would say there's a heavy truck traffic there on a daily basis during the week. So those are some areas that I would suggest, but definitely want to echo getting a little bit more robust demographics just to be able to inform future decision making. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Ivanka, please go ahead. Or was it Kimberly?
It was me. It was me. I have another question. How often are these inspections done, and do the time slots vary? Because there is a lot of truck traffic at night because it's easier for the trucks to move at night, and there are a lot of 24-hour facilities that do deliveries and drop-offs. So how often are these inspections done, and is it always the time frame of 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. or does that vary as well?
Generally, I think we have been doing it from 9 to 2, but I think we're open to doing it at different time zones. Would you agree, Cody?
Yes, it's a possibility. So that's good to know that it's hard to capture all truck traffic. So thank you very much for that. And we will look into doing other time as we can. So thank you very much.
And how often are these inspections done? Is it just once a year, twice a year? How often are these done?
So in general, enforcement is out in the field all over California, which obviously it's a big state. And we're out in the field almost on average multiple days a week for every week in a month. So 2 or 3 days a week across all of California though. So Fresno, as Eric said, we have an event following in February, and then we'll probably follow up again in the fall because we have to spread out across all of California.
No, very understandable. I would suggest like the spring getting ready to turn summer, and then summer going into fall, because I think those are really peak seasons that there's a lot of truck traffic. In the wintertime, you will see some truck traffic decline, because especially for owner operators that do the long haul, because there's not they're dealing with other elements of weather in other states. So being able to just be flexible would be nice, to where we can really get an accurate read on how many trucks that we have and that we have to get up to par or up to code.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And we'll try to, based on, you guys know the time, so that is really helpful for us because we want to be as effective as possible.
That's great. And Cody and Eric, just so that you know, we're taking note of these comments so that you all have them archived for yourselves. And we'll
Okay, excellent.
be sure to follow up. Absolutely. Ivanka.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
First I'll go off with the newest thought off of Kimberly's thought of that example of what those peak seasons for South Central, it's going to be because of all our distribution centers. You got to think about the increase in truck traffic around the Christmas season coming from those distribution centers, and what are the main ag harvest seasons are the 2 times that those 2 examples are when you're really going to find what our peak seasons are in the 617 region. The other point that I wanted to go back to is this data of this one event, it looks really good. And like Ed said, out of 500 trucks, it's very minimal that were problematic. But my fear is that if you look at this information all by itself without looking at the overburdened community of this 617 boundary, the city will misconstrue this data and use it to will use it to defend that it's okay to continue to pollute by increasing more mobile sources. And so again, this data, I really want to, it's not all by itself. It really does need to tie back to our truck study and the other CERT measures that we have going.
Thank you, Ivanka. Lilia?
Sí, buenas noches a todos. Dándole seguimiento al comentario que dio Sandra, es verdad. Aquí por la calle Cider hay mucho tráfico de trailers pesados en la noche y ahorita he estado mirando últimamente que la marquetita que ya no está en función, que es la Hanoyan, lo están usando como instalación como para estacionarse todas las noches allí. Incluso hay algunos camiones pesados que en la noche ya cuando yo pienso que ya no hay, siente que ya están dormidos todos, se escuchan los camiones pasando por las casas, por las áreas residenciales donde quizás algunos de aquí son trabajadores, no lo sé, pero dejan sus trailers o sus camiones pesados con toy y carga aquí en las zonas residenciales. ¿Ustedes han catalogado o han mirado la opción de dar vueltas en la noche para ver esos camiones pesados que están estacionados en las zonas residenciales? Es una sola pregunta nada más.
No, we haven't been around in the evenings, but that's certainly something we should take note of, especially if they're idling and parking illegally. And we would maybe work with the district on some of that, I would think.
Quiero que sepan que hay algunos camiones que se quedan prendidos toda la noche, especialmente en la calle Hamilton, junto a la calle Sequoia, en la escuela Sequoia, perdón, porque tienen refrigeradores y más en tiempo de verano. Yo me ha tocado mirar esos camiones pesados que están toda la noche prendidos porque traen refrigerador. Entonces también debemos de considerar eso también en tiempo de verano para poder mirar, ya que en tiempo de invierno, pues obvio está frío, ¿verdad? Pero en tiempo de calor sí están prendidos casi toda la noche.
Lilia, can you remind us of where you hear them on all night, the location?
Sequoia?
La Hamilton y Cider, junto a Escuela Sequoia Middle School.
Gracias, thank you. I'm also seeing a comment or question from Ed in the chat. How many peaks are in service, Eric?
Cody?
Hi, this is Warren. I work with Eric. Unfortunately, Cody jumped off, and I know that they're building new peak systems. I'm not exactly sure the number that we have in service, but we will get that and then report back.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
So those are all the questions from the CSC members, and we'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Go ahead, Lisa. Lisa, I think you're on mute.
Oh, I said hi, Carb. Sorry about that. First off, thank you for your report. However, and it's a big however, your peak hour is really skewed. 9 to 2 is not an adequate study time frame for something like this. You need something larger to get a better reflection of not only the community, the industry, but also the environment. And what are the peak industry hours in the area that you're testing in, and or the travel corridor? Do you know what those are? And also too, as you're doing these studies and as you're doing these stops to check, what are the readings? I'm going to use what I used to use in Caltrans is basically, what is the cold start data of failures, and what is the warm running failures? Cold starts, first thing in the morning, kind of warming it up. Warm running is they're out running around a couple of hours, you stop them, you check. What is there any differential in that? Also too, as other speakers have spoken about, you have really missed the peak seasons and a 24 cycle study, because a couple of hours here is not going to get you a true reflection of the dirt that these vehicles are putting out in the air. Even though it may be getting better with some of these trucks, the realization is that you're missing the biggest polluters. You need to do a multi-day, 24-hour study to get an adequate viewpoint of what is really going on with the trucks in these different areas, both on Jensen and also in Callaway. Thank you.
Thank you. What was that street? Callaway?
Callaway is like a little town
Oh, okay.
within the footprint.
Okay. Any questions in the chat or?
No questions. I just want to reiterate that I agree with Lisa with the 24-hour study, that the time frame from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's good that you were able in 2 days get over 500 to get 550 trucks screened, but you're really missing other times where there's a lot of truck traffic. During those peaks, you have trucks who have came in late at night and now they're up moving around to go deliver their load or pick up their load. And you're really missing the traffic that comes in at 7 o'clock in the evening time, 8 o'clock in the evening time, midnight even. As a former operator, we would rest during the day and move at night. So you're really missing those trucks that are moving at night.
And one last thing, unfortunately, because of these results, they may be misinterpreted by the city. And I would hope that anybody that takes this information from the city or to the city, that CARB also instructs them that this was a small window, that it was not, these results are not valid in regards to actually what's happening there, because it is not a 24-hour study or results or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Lisa. We have time for one more question from Ivanka.
Amy, I don't know if it's not directed at Eric, but it does deal with the truck study. So I don't know if I should bring it up now or when we get to updates.
Go ahead, because we're going to transition to talking about SERP updates, so it might kind of help us transition there.
Okay, so regarding our truck study and the community engagement plan, I've stated this before, but I was questioning, and this might be the action item that hasn't been resolved yet, but the deadline to be part of the advisory committee was 2 days ago, 2 days before allowing this steering committee to have that one last chance to be involved if they wanted to be. And I'm also concerned that the community engagement plan that had to go to the city to be approved, how are you giving deadlines and ending the formation of advisory committees if the engagement hasn't began in the community that you need to pull from to be a part of those committees? So it appears to be backwards. And for that, that's why I'm still saying there should be an extension of that deadline for folks to be involved. Is any of the CSC members aware that are on the call tonight that that deadline already passed on, I believe, Monday? And to be a part of that advisory committee, if the truck study is one of your main CERT measures that you wanted to follow, that would have been a clear space for not only steering committee members to be on there, but just stakeholders and community members as a whole. And I'm not too sure what the thinking is behind giving deadlines before engagement actually even started in the community. So that we need to address that and fix it and extend the deadline for that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivanka. So I see David is here. I'm not sure what other folks are here. I'm wondering if, given what you've just shared, Ivanka, if folks can be prepared to address that when we get to the updates after the SERP incentive measure. How does that sound? Does that seem fair?
Yeah, it's fine whenever, but sometime tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that would give you some time to answer, and that way we can move to, I know, as you all know, as CSC members, you're excited to be able to fully implement all of the SERP measures. And tonight, the Air District does want to provide you with an update on the implementation on wood burning and indoor air filtration measures. So I think that we can have that and then move into hearing a response to Ivanka's question. So Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for this preliminary study. It's a one snapshot overview of what happened on the day that you collected data. Thank you for allowing the CSC members to have some input and provide you with some recommendations on next steps. We will turn some of the conversation that was shared tonight to Eric as an action item. So traditionally what we do at the end of the meeting is, if we have time, we read out the action items. Either way, whether we read them aloud or not, they do become documented on the website so that we can track them. And I encourage folks who want to continue this dialogue to attend the agenda setting meeting so that we can give some continuity to tonight's meeting. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and transition to hearing directly, thanks Eric, from the Air District. And as you know, during the presentation, the Air District will be soliciting some of the feedback from CSC members. So if time allows, we will have an opportunity to move to some prioritization conversation today. We'll see it's 6:40, so we're kind of ambitious right now. So I'm going to pass it to the Air District to provide us with that presentation. Feel free to ask questions in the chat so we can keep track of those questions, but do want to make sure that you are fully aware of what's happening with some of the implementation of these measures. Stephanie?
Thanks so much, Dr. Ramos. And like Dr. Ramos mentioned, we're going to do an update on some SERP implementation, and particularly on two measures. It's going to be our fireplace and wood stove changeout program, and then indoor air measure. And like Dr. Ramos mentioned, if we have time, we'll talk about SERP prioritization and kind of some upcoming SERP measures that we'd like that are kind of next in the pipeline. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I'll be doing the first half of this presentation and passing over to one of our grant supervisors, Janine Tackett, for the other half of it. So today's goals for this presentation, the first is to review the status again of our fireplace and wood stove changeout measure. And we did want to solicit feedback from this group on opportunities for an in-person event, hopefully in the next coming weeks here. The second is to review the status of the new indoor air filtration measure, provide you all updates with that because it's been a minute since we've talked about it. And also discuss next steps with the program implementation. And the third thing is to review CSC priorities for SERP implementation and discuss if priorities are still aligning with CSC goals, and we'll get to that if we have time. If not, I think generally it's a bigger discussion that we want to continue to have with the group in the coming months. So just by way of background, we did the fireplace and wood stove changeout measure does have $2 million in incentive funding to replace wood burning devices for cleaner units. And just to give folks just a reminder of what we've gone through in relation to this measure, the project plan was submitted back in October of 2021 and approved by CARB. In June of 2022, based on feedback from folks that have gone through the program or were hoping to go through the program, from CSC members here in this group, and then also just general kind of analysis and looking into people that had participated in the program, it was clear that funding levels weren't quite adequate to kind of assist folks to be able to go through this program. And so the CSC did vote to reallocate $500,000 to increase funding per device to $4,150. And just kind of based on that same logic and background, in September of 2022, our district governing board did approve increasing funding per device kind of district-wide through the program. And today what we'd like to do is just give you all an update on the program and then also solicit feedback for an in-person event we're hoping to have soon. So currently we have replaced 63 devices in the boundary, and that's about $224,000 in funding. And while that is, we are making progress in it, it's clear that there's still lots of funding available to the community. And so while we are still in the colder months, we would like to hold an in-person outreach event to share information about the program and connect residents to different retailers that are in the area. And so the concept for this event is to actually have some of our hearth retailers that are in the Fresno area, potentially even a little further out like Visalia, come together in one place in our boundary and invite residents and anyone in the community to come out and ask questions about the program. If they want to bring pictures and ask about certain devices, they're more than welcome to. And we'll also plan to have fun. There's going to be door prizes and other, things that outreach materials that folks can access while they're there. We did recently hold an event in our Shafter AB 617 community, and we received really great feedback from the CSC members and community members that went, and also the retailers that participated in the program. In Shafter, we held it in a little, kind of like a little coffee shop. And so generally the feedback we got is that it was a really kind of like low key, no pressure way to be able to get information about the program without feeling like they needed to apply at that moment. Although we did actually end up receiving a handful of applications from that event. And so what we did want to discuss with you all is we tentatively do want to hold a fireplace show and tell event here in the community. A tentative date that we have planned is Thursday, March 2nd, and it would be in the evening. We are still working on locations. There's been a couple that we've looked into. We've looked into community centers, which generally have a lot of evening programming already in place. But we've looked into potentially in a place that is looking good is the Malaga Community Park and Rec Center, or potentially the Ted C. Willis Center as well. And just some things that we are working on in general is, in the meantime, in these next few weeks, we'll be continuing to connect with different Fresno-based hearth retailers, and also, of course, posting on social media, sending out emails to folks to make sure that people in the community know about the event. And so there's actually two questions that we want to pose here. And I'm wondering, Dr. Ramos, I know we have a Jamboard set up, and I'm wondering if we can transition over there to maybe pose these two questions and see if folks have any feedback on them. I also see Genevieve's hand up.
I can wait until after the questions are posed.
Sure.
Go ahead. Yeah, we can go ahead and provide that link now. And as folks are getting ready. So as you know, the Jamboard is a way for us to collect and record feedback. Are you posting that, Stephanie, or did you want us to post it?
I can share it in the chat, but I'm wondering, is your team able to support taking notes on there?
Yep.
So if folks feel comfortable, I'm going to drop the link into the chat, and you're welcome to just add your own comments and feedback. But we can also just share it and then take comments verbally from everyone.
I'll share my screen. Sorry, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, go ahead, Genevieve.
Sure. I had a question. If the Air District has done any kind of surveying or like community data collection about people's about their ability to participate in the program, and perhaps like different avenues for reducing burning. So one is obviously to replace your wood burning device with something else that has a high capital cost. Other options are, if people have central heating, but it's too expensive to be running and it's the wood burning stove that's much cheaper for them. Could there be alternate ways of reducing burning, like giving them discounts on their energy bills through this program? I'm just trying to be creative, and I think it would be helpful to understand what the real barriers are. And if we haven't done any kind of surveying of the community, this in-person event could be a good opportunity to have a short survey and receive that feedback, so that we have a better understanding of the opportunities and barriers, because I know this program has been around a long time and we still have wood burning as an issue. So just trying to be creative and use this as an opportunity to collect more community feedback. I was wondering what the Air District thought about that.
I can answer a little bit on that one. We did some very broad surveys back in, I believe it was 2017, that did ask those types of questions, and we did target some of them in to get certain zip codes in Fresno. They weren't the AB 617 zip codes specifically, but they were zip codes where we felt the neighborhoods were older, where they might have open hearth fireplaces or wood burning devices. And most folks are willing to make the change if there's enough money there. And that's one of the things that I know this group has been discussing, making sure that there is money available for folks to make the change to a gas device. There's a few, but just a couple percentage points of people that actually gather their own wood. Most folks actually purchase wood, and it actually ends up costing them about the same amount, sometimes even a little bit more than it does to run a gas device. We also have some provisions that allow people to go to electric heat pumps, which can be a little bit less expensive. They're very energy efficient. I just put some in my house, and I can't say enough positive things about them. So we've been working with our retailer partner to make sure that they're understanding that if folks decide they want to go totally away from gas, that there is that option as well. There is, the utility does have some special programs to reduce bills for folks, and we do link people to that type of service if they're not already familiar with it.
And Jamie, this is Stephanie. I'll jump in here and say that we actually do have some slides related to energy bill assistance that we'll go over during Janine's part of the presentation as well.
Thank you. And Jamie, those heat pumps, they're like the mini splits that I'm imagining. Okay. And does the district offer discounts that if you were to not cancel, but fill in your wood burning stove and get a mini split, you could get rebates or incentives?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ivanka?
I'm trying to use the Jamboard. But I think some of the ways is trying to make sure that you're using the school systems for comms, the community centers that have programming in them, like the Friends of Kawa Community Center, the West Fresno Family Resource Center that runs 2 of the community centers over here. You need to use areas that are already a spot where the flyers of multiple resources are available and people know that's where to go if I have questions, and maybe there's information there. So really look into the community centers. If anyone else can remember some of the other ones in the other areas. Yes, Ted C. Willis, it's almost on the outside of the boundary, but that could be a good one. There's the Senior Citizen Center there. So seniors might be living in some of these older homes if it's their original home. Ted C. Willis, West Fresno Family Resource Center, which is Mariella Brown and Maxie Parks, Friends of Kawa, and there's just look up the community centers, I think is a good place to share out a lot of our information, not just on this one.
Bill? Oh, you're on mute, Bill, sorry.
One thought was if they were going to switch to using their central air or whatever, central heat, which is more expensive, what if they agreed to get rid of their wood burning appliance, whether, then you gave them the money without them reinvesting in a particular gas unit, but they could use that money they received if you offer X amount of dollars, if they demolish their fireplace, or if they take their wood burning stove and get rid of it, does it matter to you if they absolutely have to buy another gas burning appliance, or could they use that money for their electric heating bill, which would serve the purpose of reducing the pollution, but it would give them the option of just using their in-house system? It was just a thought.
Not sure if the Air District has answers to that right now, or if we should table that.
I can jump in real quick on that. We do have a component option that's very similar to that in if somebody would like to decommission their fireplace, and I'm sorry if you hear my dogs in the background, they can receive up to $750 to basically put out of commission their open hearth fireplace or firebox. They do have to go through a contracted a contractor, like a licensed contractor, to do that demolition of the fireplace. It involves concreting in the chimney and sealing off the front. But it is a much smaller amount than compared to an actual replacement of putting a device in. But that option is available in our existing program right now.
Thank you for clarification. I'm also seeing that Genevieve's recommending or saying that she'd support sharing information about heat pumps along with gas inserts at the event. And Kimberly provided clarification on Mary Ella Brown, and I see your hand is up, Kimberly, so you can go next here. And then want to read off, sorry, before you go, I just want to read off the next comment for the record. So we have that the Fresno EOC Local Conservation Corps also opens up their conference room and facility for community events. And a question of how will the gas burning fireplace initiative be impacted by the new California law to not have any new gas appliances? So if the Air District has answers to the last question before Kimberly goes next. Not seeing any. Oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
I was going to say we can follow up on that item, and if you don't mind putting it on the action items, we'll follow up on it.
Yep, perfect. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I know it was just said that there were $750 incentive, but are there any other incentives or programs to help offset the cost for the resident? Because a lot of these homes are in low-income neighborhoods or disinvested communities, and the residents may not have the money to convert over or to replace their fireplaces. So is there any other programs besides the one that was just mentioned? Because it seems like it's going to cost a lot to replace. So is there any other programs or incentives available to where it's really not a lot of out-of-pocket costs for the residents?
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm going to attempt to answer that one for you. While I don't work specifically on this program, I do work next to the program. So we do have higher incentive levels for low-income households, and also options to provide direct payment to their retailers so that they don't have to come out of pocket upfront with that money. So we do have some extra features built in to help assist low-income families and low-income residents. And I apologize, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about the special aspects for the program within the Fresno community, but those are basic features in the program that would be available for this community's residents as well.
And just
thank you for that. I'm sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
Just to piggyback, there's at least one local vendor who is claiming that with the increased incentive, if you get what they're referring to as a good new unit, as opposed to they're doing good, great, best, if you just go with a good unit, that it would be no out-of-pocket cost.
Okay. Do the Air District have a list of contractors or businesses that go into the resident's home, or ones that they suggest that would not have an out-of-pocket cost? That would be helpful to have all that information. So when we're talking to our network of residents about fireplace replacement, that we are equipped with all the information, so they will know that there are programs out here to help, that it's a little out of pocket or no out of pocket costs.
We do have a list and we can provide that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ivanka.
This is when we're talking about a programming and how it can extend just a little bit beyond just the cost of a replacement. I think one thing that is overlooked in these older homes that may have had an update, maybe not through this program, but maybe their stove is not as old or a dirty burning system as we may think. Many people are very uneducated and unaware about the maintenance of a wood stove and the chimney sweep that needs to be normally done. And that in itself is creating a whole lot of not just danger and bad air for breathing on the inside of the house, but also the amount of not clean burning as it should. And so if there's any way that when you have vendors out to sell the actual devices, there needs to be vendors that are actually or an extension of those vendors, the department that actually does the chimney cleaning. I've seen and have spoken to neighborhood community members that their devices are not old, it's just that they're not maintained. And if there's any way that that could be an extension of this program or included, that could be very helpful too.
I totally agree with you, Ivanka. The education piece and the maintenance piece is very important, so that needs to be added as well.
And I'm seeing Jamie nod. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else there, Jamie.
Just as a reminder, so if someone has a wood burning device and they want to use it during the winter, most of the time, there may be a handful of days where we allow everyone to burn, but I think in Fresno, there's just been 2 or 3 of those days this year. If they want to be able to use that wood burning device very often, they need to have it registered with the district. And we actually keep a list of what we call our registered wood burning heating professionals. Wood stoves, RWBHP. So yeah, wood burning heating professionals. And they have to go through a process to get their device registered, just so that we know that it's okay for folks to be using their device on those days when we don't allow burning except for those registered devices. Those devices are usually exactly what you were talking about, Ivanka. Newer ones, they have to be EPA certified. That's just, it gets certified before it's sold. So it has to be kind of a newer device. And it has to be either a stove or an insert. Open hearth fireplaces it is only 1 or 2 days a year that you can use your open hearth fireplace. Those tend to be really the dirtiest kind of device that you can have out there. So we do have a little bit of a program, but I agree with you, more education and outreach about that way to get your device certified. And that actually involves one of those professionals coming out and making sure that it is working correctly and cleanly.
So Jamie, my question to you is that, do residents know that if they register their device with the Air District, that they will be notified when they can burn and not burn, or is that just something that they have to research on their own?
Well, we do a fair amount of outreach about it. You know, it's on the evening news, on the local news in the evenings. They do the status. We've got a variety of different ways that we do it. And then in all honesty, if folks are burning on days when they shouldn't, there's a chance that they'll get a ticket. And that they get that ticket, they then have a choice of either paying the $100 or coming into a smoke school. And we will work with people to get them the information they need to register their device if that's where they are, or to go into the grant program if maybe they have an open hearth fireplace and they want to upgrade it to something that they can use, like an electric device or a gas device.
So again, it's after they receive a fine that they find out this information. A lot of people may not see it on the news or hear it on the news. So again, it goes back to the education piece. So when we're doing community outreach or we having these Fresno Fireplace Show and Tell events, that piece needs to be told to our residents. And again, it's all about education to avoid the fines and the fees.
I agree. Yes. And we are constantly trying to do more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I see Lilia has commented in the chat that she would welcome doing advertisement for these events. Once the details are finalized, she can advertise at her events that she hosts. So Lisa, I'm seeing your hand and wondering if you have a comment that you'd like to share, a question?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple of things. One of the things I think that the Air District needs to look at is their policy of reporting. There definitely needs to be changes on that. Also, too, I would like to see, when is the marketing schedule for not only the fire replacements, but also lawnmowers? We're coming up on lawn season, guys. April's a really good month. People get their tax money back. They start to mow their lawns. Good opportunity to get people out and about and, pitching lawnmower replacement as well. As far as the registry for fire burning, it is my understanding, because I had to report another person in my neighborhood burning on a no burn day about a fire. There's smoke and stuff, because it was infecting me in my home again, being a high risk heart patient and not wanting to have a stroke because of it. The most interesting thing I found out is, if it's your only form of heat, you get a pass from the Air District, and nobody ever goes back and checks to see if they've upgraded their home where they did not need the fireplace. So I'm just wondering, is there any way that the Air District can put a sunset date on those exceptions, or you have to do, a renewal like every couple of years? That would be really good, because it also plays into, it also can dovetail into the marketing of this and people transitioning from the fireplaces to more clean burning. And also too, why can't the Air District work with the planning department, because they have, everything online, and why don't they run a cert, or, they run a, they can run a, they can run on their program all the houses built in the 1930s with a fireplace that are still in existence, that you guys could send, like a postcard about these events. The homes with the, that were built in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, even into the 60s. Why couldn't you do a target marketing for those homes with fireplaces? And if they don't meet the criteria, okay, fine. But if they do meet the criteria and they do want to do this, then they can come offline. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I see Ryan has potentially an answer. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to address some of the concerns that Lisa raised in regards to sole source. We definitely do look at those. Those are not simple to get. So inside, for example, the AB 617 areas and the more densely populated areas, most homes are required to have a heating device besides a fireplace, central heating. And if it's a matter of a unit being broken, there is we do require them to get that repaired, and we only give them a short duration or we could give them a limited duration to do that. They do not get an exemption for years and years and years. We give them time, because we understand that in some cases, depending on what's wrong with the unit, it can be very costly. So we do give them adequate time to secure the funding in order to make those repairs. But once that time is up, then they would no longer have that exemption anymore. And so they would be required to comply with the requirements.
Excuse me, I forgot one other thing. Also too, when you're looking at replacing situations of heating and cooling and such, just a side personal story for you guys. Literally, my PG&E went from 130 going into the winter. I think the highest one I've had so far is $320 a month, which is not in my budget. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And literally this last month's PG&E bill was $290, and my heating is down to 68 degrees in the coldest month of the year. So when you're talking about transitioning someone to gas and electric, I've signed up for every single PG&E program, and that is the bare bottom dollar amount they're willing to cut my bill to. So, and I'm just one person. I can't even imagine what a family of 5 are going through.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
real. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. And I think that helps us move to our next item. This is the winter and people are spending a lot of time indoors. So Steph's going to walk us through the indoor filtration CERT measure update.
Thanks, Dr. Ramos, and thank you all for that feedback. We're looking through these comments, and we'll follow up on all the suggestions you all had about locations and different places to do outreach for the program. And we will be sharing more information once all the details of the program, like location and date, are finalized. We'll share out a flyer with this group, and I think just mail out hard copies to folks. That way they can share it out with community members, neighbors, friends, to advertise the event, in addition to all of the other locations you all mentioned. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to one of our grant supervisor, Janine, to talk about the indoor air filtration program.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so this is an exciting one. There's been a lot happening with this program, so I'm really excited to share that information with everybody today. So for the Fresno community, we do have $1 million in incentive funding allocated for this program. And that is to purchase a device and 1 replacement filter per household. So back in June of 2022, the CSC voted to develop and adopt this new measure and allocated the $1 million from the locomotive measure. Then as we move through time, September, we met again, got some feedback, started developing the criteria, and in December, we completed our draft project plan and submitted that to CARB. We received feedback from CARB today on that project plan. It was really exciting to get that email first thing this morning, and they had very minor comments, so we were able to address those very quickly, wrap that up, and send it straight back to them. So we're in the final stages now, just waiting for them to make that final check mark and say we're good to go, and then we can proceed with the next steps in the process. So this first quarter of 2023, we are now very confident we'll have an approved plan from CARB. We'll also be taking that to the governing board for approval, and then getting ready to release a request for quotes from vendors and manufacturers. So that's pretty much where we're at right there. Stephanie, next slide. So within that project plan, we tried to take all of the feedback that we got from the community. This particular plan is for Fresno. It's going to also be for Stockton and Shafter. And so we created a project plan that had kind of a buffet of items so that we could address each community's specific desires and needs. So clearly across the board, you got to live in the community to participate in this one. That's just kind of the standard baseline eligibility criteria. But then from there, the community can select, the CSC can select which other criteria they may want to apply. Now, maybe the decision is none of them. When we just want to go with you're in the community, you can apply, first come, first serve. But we have built in some ways to identify the residents that are in the most need. We know everybody's in need within this community, but there is a scale there of those that might need immediate relief from indoor air quality. So low income, as designated by enrollment in some of the other programs throughout the state, such as CalFresh, Medi-Cal, WIC. We've got a whole list within the project plan. Whether or not there's children in the household, whether or not there are senior citizens in the household. Also, whether or not somebody is in the household that's been diagnosed with a respiratory illness, disease, or condition. Now, we've kept this as simplistic and streamlined as possible for residents to apply. So on many of these eligibility criteria, it'll be self-certification. We're not asking for documents of medical diagnosis or anything of that nature. It would just be a self-certification if they fit within one of those categories. And again, the CSC can have further conversations about which, if any of those, they want to engage for this community. And then we're going to also be doing, like we do with everything else, a lot of outreach. We're prioritizing the highest in-need populations for that. And then also looking to CBOs to assist with outreach and potential implementation of in-person events. Next slide. So we have built in 2 different options for distribution within the program. The first option is just the direct. We take the applications in at the district. We ensure that they're meeting the criteria set forth. We place their order with the contracted, the contracted vendors and manufacturers, and then it's directly shipped to their home. Then there is a second option that the community can select to do, which is like a hybrid, where we have a portion that is that direct ship from the manufacturer, and then also adding in some in-person events. Now, those in-person events don't have to be standalones. We could tag along. I know Lisa mentioned we're heading into lawn care season, and we will likely see lawnmower events, and that might be a great one to partner with air filtration, change out your lawnmower, pick up a free air filter. You know, I mean, that sounds like a great day to me. So we definitely have some options there for how we implement the program, and trying to make sure that we have a equitable program and that we reach those first that are in the greatest need for devices. And next slide. Okay. Oh, we're on the energy bill assistance. Stephanie, did you want me to stop and take any notes or comments for the air filtration before we move to energy bill assistance?
I think we can go over the side of this. We just have this one, and then I believe one other, and then
Okay.
we can wrap that up before we take all the
Sounds
questions.
good. Sounds good. So energy bill assistance, we've got several different ones that are currently available. Low income home energy assistance program. We've got the California Alternative Rates for Energy program, that's CARE through the PG&E. And that one, I think there's probably, I've heard a lot of people on that particular program. It does offer 20% discount on gas and electricity. So I know we heard some comments today about those rising costs. I've even felt them myself. Free solar programs. This one I think is really important for everybody, because again, if we kind of circle back to that conversation about getting rid of wood burning and putting in another type of device, maybe one of those mini split heat pump devices we talked about earlier on, there is more energy consumption there. But if they're able to get free solar to help offset that, then that can be a great packaging of programs. And then weatherization, this one ties into just about everything, especially indoor air quality, and all of those older homes that we were mentioning earlier too. There are services that they can apply for to get things such as insulation, weather stripping, air duct work, replacing of appliances that might be not efficient or not working well. I've even heard that, and I don't know for sure, but I've heard the weatherization program can also in some cases cover window upgrades. So if they have a very old home with very old windows, they might be eligible for some upgraded windows for better energy efficiency in their house. Next slide.
And Janine, that was actually the last slide of these.
Oh, is that the last slide?
That's
Okay.
the last one.
My
And we have-
apologies.
No, you're all good. And so like Janine said, there is one slide here that we did want to solicit feedback on. I think actually this one and then a little bit of the last slide as well, just thoughts. Well, one, just what folks are feeling in terms of these options, the direct from manufacturer or else kind of a flexible distribution option as well of doing like direct from manufacturer and in-person events. And if folks had any feedback also on this slide about potential applicant eligibility, we're happy to take all of that feedback. And Amy and Liz, I do think there's a slide on the Jamboard that we can take these notes on, or if
Yep.
we just have perfect, thanks.
Yeah. If you want to share your screen, Liz, and we'll take notes on the first one. So for the Fresno Fireplace Show and Tell, do you all have recommendations on location?
Oh, and you know what, Amy, I actually did see, I think a lot of our last CSC meeting, we had so many comments, we split all the questions, but I do see a lot of comments on the very first slide about location. So we can go ahead and move those over. It's actually on the third slide, choosing distribution process.
All right, so direct from manufacturer only or option 2, flexible distribution, direct in-person events. So here are the questions from the Air District. Any input on these questions? And I see your hand raised, Lisa, and I don't see anybody else, so go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Lisa.
Having received one of your air filtration system, it's still sitting in a box in my entryway, by the way.
Oh.
I don't know how many months, but it's sitting there. And the big question is, Lisa, why is it sitting there? It's sitting there because I'm disabled, because I have bad knees, I have arthritis through my body, and the box is so damn big, it's hard for me to move and open up. So one of the things I'm asking you guys to do is think about the disabled folks that will be applying, and they need equipment that is suitable, that they can move around and not be so encumbered with.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about, what are you going to give that little abuelita in Callaway? What can she pick up and move? What can she clean? What can she afford to change the filter? Think like think that you're giving something to somebody's grandmother.
Yes.
That's always a really good start. Also too, electricity is going up. And when I get this thing unpacked and when I plug it in, my next fear is going to be, can I afford to run it? Because PG&E just told me literally not even a week ago that electricity rates are going up and that I should be expecting that going into the summer, which I thought that's a nice racket. Also too, when you are giving these filtration systems out, you also need to think about the accessibility of filters. Can they get them in their neighborhood? Are they going to have to go to a Target or a Walmart? Are they going to have to now take a bus to go and get those items? And also what would really, really work and benefit people is to have some coupons. Because I know my filtrations for my HVAC system is $20 a pop. And a lot of people can't afford that. So they go for the $7.99 filters instead. So when you're looking at, you're going to give them one, great. How long is that going to last? With energy going up and everything going up, you know, a $20 filter literally may be the difference between gas going to work or not. So having like a coupon they can use at a Target or like an Ace Hardware store, it would be really beneficial. And the other thing about this big box filtration thing that I've yet to unpack that was really disturbing to me was I never got notification, a tracking number. I never got notification in the mail about when to look for it. Never got a text message, nothing. It just suddenly appeared on my doorstep. And I live on a really busy street at one of the major intersections in the tower. And if I wasn't home and I didn't see somebody pull up, it most likely would have been stolen. So you also have to look at have a little cushion in the number that you're going to hand out for stolen, because it is going to happen if you don't provide that tracking notification information.
Yeah.
But just downsize these things, because this is a big box. I could put a dead body in it.
You definitely bring up some great points, Lisa, and I would like to comment on a couple of them to help maybe ease some of your concerns. During our pilot program, that was obviously our first learning experience at doing air filters, and we utilized Ace Hardware. It was the first time they had done something like this, so we were both learning as we went. They had 4 different devices that they utilized for our valley-wide program in order to secure enough inventory. Some of them were larger, some of them were smaller, and it sounds like you got the larger one. So I apologize for that, but we didn't have in that program control of which one went where. But you may find that once you open the outer box, the inner box is a little smaller. I'm not going to say it's small, but it is a little smaller. As far as the filter replacement, one of the things that we are building into the request for quotations from the vendors is we are wanting them to identify what their manufacturer suggested replacement filter interval is, and we will be scoring their proposals on what that interval is. So if a manufacturer says we require every 3 months it to be replaced, and another one says our product only needs it replaced once a year, well, that once a year is going to be scored higher. The device comes with a filter, and then we will supply a second filter. So if it is an annual replacement, then our hope is that that resident will be able to utilize that filter for at least 2 years without any cost investment for replacement filters. Obviously, after that time, they would need to order. And that is also one of the things we've asked we'll be asking the vendors is how replacement filters can be repurchased. Is it only online? Are they present in stores? What stores are they present in? So that when we are selecting vendors to work with, we're ensuring that they've got a quality product. Their devices are ENERGY STAR rated. Their noise levels are below a certain threshold so that they're not, these really loud, clunky, noisy devices. So we're trying to build all of that into our request for proposals so that when we make our selections, we're doing it in the best way possible. And then, as far as the energy cost goes, again, we're trying to make sure that we get the highest ENERGY STAR rated devices selected for the program.
The one thing I also had, what was it I wanted to say? I like to run like MERV 13s on everything. And so if you say the filters are good for a year, that's like a standard use year. And I always try to prepare for the forest fire summers. And would that still hold up? Would those filters be good for a year if you have like the major forest fires that,
I don't know, because I don't know exactly what brands we're going to be dealt. But all of the devices, we have put a hard requirement that it must be a true HEPA filter, which means it's going to be more along the lines of like a MERV 24. So really, really clean devices. And typically the manufacturers will have a replacement filter like strategy built into their recommendations. And it usually indicates how much time, like if you were to run this for 8 hours a day, every day, you would need to replace the filter at this interval, or 24 hours a day, every day at this interval. So we will hopefully be getting the most information possible from manufacturers. And if we don't have enough information from them, then they'll either need to provide it or they won't be selected, because we definitely want to ensure that the devices we are getting are quality, that they're going to hold up, and that they're going to provide the best level of filtration at the least cost possible for the residents.
Well, I also think that there's also an education component to this as well, that if you're running them at 24 and a fire season happens like we had a couple of years ago, that people are educated of this is how long your filter will last before, you know, failure occurs. Because I think that's also important for people to be prepared for the next fire season.
Yeah,
because it may not happen this year, but it's going to happen with all this rain.
Absolutely, yeah. At some point, we will see it again. So I definitely hear you that education. You know, we heard that a lot through the night tonight. It definitely is very important in a lot of aspects of these programs.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you both. And I see Ivanka has their hand raised. So Ivanka, if you could please share.
Hi, thank you, Janine. You touched on the fact of the intervals. I think that is more crucial from my feedback with working with residents that did the pilot program. We have to take in mind, regardless of what the standard interval is based off of the box, you need to double that or replace it twice as fast due to the fact of this region of being overburdened. That factor has to be taken into consideration. And if we're only giving 2 filters, we probably should actually be giving 4 in one household, for the fact that these filters are getting filled up twice as fast in this region of the 617 than they would somewhere else in Fresno. And so I'm glad you're looking at the interval as far as the rating of which vendor to use, but across the board of any of those vendors, everything I agree with what Lisa just said, but specifically, I'm just saying the component that also needs to be included is the amount of dirt that the homes that are older, poor ventilation, not as closed because they have single pane windows, etc. That needs to let you know that you're going to be replacing those filters probably twice as often as you would in a house that's able to be more contained.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that information.
Thank you all so much. So the Air District now has a handful of feedback and recommendations for next step on these 2 SERP measures. So we'll be sure to provide you all with the action items. I'm looking at the clock and it's officially 7:31. I know, Ivanka, we had some questions that we wanted answered and we also wanted to go through some updates. I'm seeing that Scott from the city is not here today. And I'm also seeing that Greg is here and he will provide some follow-up via email so that we can continue this conversation based on the questions that you asked earlier, Ivanka. And in addition to that, we have several updates from the subcommittees that have been doing a lot of work that you all have been keeping up the momentum and continuing to do the hard work behind the scenes. So those updates from the subcommittees and from our agencies that are here tonight, including other divisions of CARB and Caltrans and other general updates, will be provided via email. As a reminder, we do have several updates that go through your inbox, so please be sure to check those emails. And I see Stephanie has her hand raised before we go to next steps and public comment.
Really quickly, I did just want to acknowledge that there's one last slide in the PowerPoint that's just about some certain measures that are kind of next in the pipeline. It definitely deserves more than the -2 minutes that we have in this meeting. But I did just want to recognize it and say that we'll come back to it at the agenda setting and also future CSC meetings.
Yeah, so maybe we can make it an action item for all CSC members and folks that are here today and interested to continue to review the presentation slide that's available on the website and bring your ideas to the next agenda setting meeting. Ivanka, please go ahead while I share my screen.
Thank you. I know that you just said that these standing updates will be shared out through email and that we could always go to the links of the website. But this one to me is very urgent. The Caltrans, they actually approved the final environmental impact report on the overpass expansion of Caltrans Highway 99 North Avenue, American Avenue expansion. That went out yesterday after all the advocacy that we have done with Caltrans locally and at the headquarters to oppose that you are expanding for heavy duty trucks in a 617 area. They didn't even have the nerve to let us know when that environmental impact report was coming out. The other really concerning part is that this final environmental impact report, they are not doing a public comment period of 30 or 45 days after the final report. Most of the time when an environmental impact report comes out, the public gets the opportunity to oppose or to voice their concerns. This is really egregious of an act that our Caltrans department is doing, knowing that Caltrans has a history of why we were sitting here as a 617 community, of putting all kind of highways through Black and brown communities. And now in this day and age, they're willing to acknowledge we have this horrible past of doing that. And as of today, we're still going to do it. And as of today, we're going to sit on this call with your 617 committee and say, we're still doing that. And so those of you who have not been following this, feel free to reach out to me so I can discuss further with you. But this needs to be explicitly reviewed by all of the committee members on this call. It is going to allow for more increased heavy-duty truck traffic into the 617 community that we are trying to protect. So basically, it's a slap in all of our faces on this call that are trying to improve a region who we know historically has been hit by all types of distribution and overburdened situations and land use decisions by a city that still doesn't want to have any kind of agreement with an air district to move forward with better notification and protections for this community. And on top of that, using the worker bee of Caltrans to continue their dirty work of expanding in an area that's already overburdened. And so it's not good enough that we have Caltrans just joining this call to say that they're giving an update, and the update is we're still going to screw over your community. So like I said, anyone wants to follow this more closely, feel free to reach out to me or anyone at Leadership Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivanka. I think that's so important for you to continue to bring up these injustices that continue to happen in your community. I'm wondering, Ivanka, if you want to go ahead and put your email just for others that are here. And since this is a publicly archived meeting, if someone is watching this later on, you want to go ahead and put that in the chat. That way it becomes archived there and folks can reach out to you. Thank you all for joining today's meeting. Really appreciate you being here. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, this was going to be a very packed agenda. So we hope to see you at the subcommittee meetings that are happening on a continual basis. Please check the website.
Excuse me, Amy, before you close out the meeting, can I say something really quick about the Caltrans thing?
I'll give you 30 seconds.
As a retired Caltrans transportation and environmental planner, when you are told to show up to a meeting as an employee, you're told to show up from the start of the meeting to the very end of the meeting in case any issues come up. So for the employee that was assigned to this meeting not to be here and not to address community's concerns is very upsetting to me. As a retired environmental planner, when you have community that comes forward and addresses their concerns with the environmental document that was not provided to us until I raised some hell, for them not to come back to the community is also very upsetting. And in fact, it basically goes against their practices and procedures that they, when dealing with communities of interest, low-income communities and communities of color, and that they need to re-examine their stance on environmental justice and environmental racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Those are great words to end on tonight. So really appreciate you all being here. As the next steps, let's continue this conversation at the agenda setting meeting so that you all can prioritize.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, is that Eric? I
Yes.
recognize your voice. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was just going to share the Central Valley Urban Institute is sponsoring a charter bus to the CARB meeting from Fresno to Sacramento on the 13th. And we'll be leaving at 7 o'clock to arrive at the their 10 a.m. meeting in downtown Sacramento. And we're doing a mobilization for cleaner air in the Central Valley. And so if you, your neighbors, your friends, other community partners would like a seat on the bus, we'll also be covering meals for the day. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And I'm wondering if you haven't done so already, I'd encourage you to send that email to the Air District so that it can go out to all the CSC members.
Yep, absolutely.
Wonderful. Great. Well, we hope to be able to see you at the next agenda setting meeting on Wednesday, February 15th at 4:30. Please do note, CSC members, that our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 15th at 5:30, and it is rescheduled due to a TCC meeting. At this time, we will be closing up the meeting. As you know, if you have any questions or comments, please do feel free to reach out to anyone from the Air District or anyone from our team as well. We are here to serve you. Thank you all so much for doing this laborious work and continuing to fight for the climate justice in South Fresno area. Have a good night, everyone.